So I joined ECA on 7th June 2001. So altogether, this is going to be about 24 years of my career. So I started working in March 1981. So it means of all the time I spent busy working, the majority was here with ECA. It really gave me an opportunity to understand Africa better, I mean, its challenges and the opportunities, and also to work with fantastic colleagues in shaping some of the ideas that have informed or are still informing the development, discourse, policy, and interventions on the continent. I'm a mineral exploration geologist by training, and as such, I mean, a lot of my work when I joined here was essentially in that area. But looking at it from a broader perspective, basically looking at how the extractive sector, which, as you know, constitutes the most important sector in many of our economies and countries, would open up opportunities in other sectors of the economy. So the first part of my work, I mean, I'm very proud of that piece of work, which was really, the title is Mainstreaming Mineral Wealth into Growth and Poverty Reduction Strategies. It was an effort to try and articulate what will be the contribution of the extractive sector, mining in particular, in promoting growth and inclusive growth for that matter, and of course addressing poverty problems compounding Africa's development. And in those days, I mean, it was the days of the PRSPs, the Poverty and Reduction Strategy papers, and we used to facilitate a peer learning grouping on that. The second piece of work was about mineral clusters, because again, in many of our countries, the extractive sector is essentially an enclave with absolutely no linkages whatsoever with other sectors of the economy. So it was basically, I mean, a hole to dig resources or transport it to the ports and export it as raw materials. And with given the high capital intensity of the sector, with very few linkages, including in job creation. So those two studies on mineral cluster was essentially trying to argue that with adequate policies, it was possible for Africa to retain more of the wealth that it generated in the sector locally, and that exporting raw materials is exporting jobs, and that because of the attractiveness of the extractive sector and its capacity to facilitate large-scale investment, especially on infrastructure, one of the arguments was that that infrastructure should be equally used to open up opportunities in other sectors of the economy that didn't have the same fundamentals, economic fundamentals, to afford building a 500-kilometer railway deep inside the hinterland. So that was looking at extractives, but as part of an ecosystem of transformation and of building, promoting resource-driven industrialization, economic diversification, and so on. So that was at the beginning of let's say that thought process, and coming from relatively confined discipline, which is mineral exploration, joining ECA enabled me to understand those dynamics. When I joined, I joined at those days it used to be called Regional Cooperation and Integration Division. So we had in that division infrastructure, trade, and a couple of other sectors. And so it was my introduction to that strategic understanding of economic issues and how, in particular, the extractive sector contributed to it. Well, I mean, in terms of understanding of the pathways to addressing that structural problem, yes. I think if you look at many of the policy instruments in many of our countries, you will see, a reflection of that aspirational goal. And by the way, uh, perhaps one of the uh, most interesting contribution that I was involved in was in the formulation of the African mining vision. And the African mining vision is essentially about resource-driven industrialization. It is about promoting linkage, it's about value addition and all of that. So you will see in many of the of our member states uh, policy instruments, you'll see references to all of those issues. The problem has always been, once, of course, the issues are understood and framed in relevant policies, the problem has been implementation. And that I would argue, it's still there. And that's an area where we haven't made any significant sort of step changes. We are and we continue to be exporters of raw materials. Then I went to Kigali as the director of the sub-regional office for Eastern Africa. This is 2009, so 8 years after I had joined the institution. And there, my brief, was to restructure the office and improve its value proposition for its member states. And there, it became obvious to me that there were certain sectors that was important for us to contribute to. And this is the tourism sector, which was not part of the work streams of the organization. I remember, some of the conversations with my supervisors, which they didn't really understand why I was pushing for the development of a work stream on tourism. But the reasons were obvious. From Dar es Salaam, where I had been there from 1996 to 2001, to Kenya, to many of other countries in Eastern Africa, tourism was an important sector, but was a sector which again faced the same problems as in the extractives, which again with very little linkages and so on. So we started that work stream on tourism with a very seminal contribution, which was the formulation of the IGAD Sustained Tourism Master Plan, which was, let's say, a first attempt to try and understand the overall tourism ecosystem and what would make, what would enable it to be developed in a sustainable manner. Hence the title, IGAD Sustained Tourism Master Plan. So we looked at issues of some of the fundamentals. You cannot have tourism if you don't have, security, if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't diversify the product. So that is a piece of work that I'm particularly proud of. And then linked to that, because most of the tourism especially in coastal areas, was of course linked to water systems. Then we developed, also a work stream on the blue economy, which again was the first in kind at ECA, and I would say even on the continent. And the policy handbook on the blue economy, was one of those outputs. So that again was a very, very interesting opportunity to engage in directly with the member states. As you know, SRO is our first port of call, where we have direct collaboration with an engagement with our member states. Also, working with International Conference for the Great Lakes States, the ICGLR. We worked together with that sub-regional institution in developing a framework to reduce the link between natural resources and conflicts. From Liberia and the Blood Diamonds to to many other parts in the world, there was this very clear linkages between natural resource exploitation and conflicts. So we worked together to try to develop governance frameworks that would somehow decouple those two sort of issues. Then I see myself in 2016 in Yaoundé. Again, was laterally moved there as the director of our office for Central Africa. And I arrived there in a time when that region was facing a serious macroeconomic instability. Again, due to its excessive dependence on the export of commodities. In this particular case, was mostly oil and natural gas resources. And so, I mean, it became obvious that we needed to address that issue. Hence the Douala Consensus, and this is September 2017. I mean, we had adopted the Douala Consensus on resource-driven and trade-induced industrialization, and it was, really a very grateful for the opportunity that we had to work together. You were at that time, you were there. I mean, stepping in for a colleague that had been moved or had, gone to greener pastures. So we worked together in that particular front. And the Douala Consensus today is still, the framework on everything to do with economic diversification. So, and that again was very interesting period with ECA, where we came forward with Made in Central Africa, from a vicious to a virtuous cycle, again, which was centered in this idea that was important to reduce dependence, was important to promote resource-driven industrialization, to consume, to produce and consume locally. So that for me again was an important milestone in terms of articulating the link between natural resources development and sustained development. So this is the platform that ECA has provided me. I mean, in terms of an opportunity to engage in with different stakeholders. I mean, working with fantastic colleagues in shaping policy discourse on the continent. And then, of course, lately I'm here since 2021, back in Addis as the Deputy Executive Secretary and responsible for program support. That required, again, a shift somehow in the way I saw things, moving from, let's say, programmatic or substantive perspective to a much more strategic leadership and integration kind of approach to things, managing people, managing difficult portfolios. But again, was interesting growth trajectory, as it were. I was happy with the opportunity that was provided to try and promote an efficiency agenda that was centered in the recognition that the two sides of the house, currently the designated as program and program support, are part and parcel of the same continuum. And that if we want to generate the results at the scale and the impact that we want, we aspire, then we needed to develop a much more integrated planning process. So hence the introduction of integrated resources planning and utilization framework, which brings that idea together, and with the supporting instruments like standard operating procedures that are about right from the beginning, the conceptualization stage, that we need to bring all the stakeholders together to understand what is at stake, so formulate some sort of of a theory of change. I mean, this is a concept that was somehow it took time to to be accepted in the organization, but all of these things you have to be patient and understand that each and every one of us, we come from different angles, but so spending time together, articulating what is the change that we want, what are the pathways to achieving that change, and then what are the different steps to which we need to go. I think again was a very interesting process in itself, and where I mean we argue that from communication to knowledge management to a capacity development, all of those factors need to be integrated in your planning of your program, because otherwise then they are neglected, and then the visibility, the aspirations that the changes that we want will not be implemented. Again, I'm very thankful for the organization that trusted me with the responsibility of stepping in a moment where I mean our former executive sector departed the organization, and there was a need to secure or stability, and it happened in a moment where our role on the continent was being questioned, and I took upon myself that it was important to engage with the relevant parties to try and identify what are the root causes of that perception, and work together into reducing the gaps, if any, and then demonstrating that ECA is an institution that is here to serve Africa better, and that we have the interests of the continent as our main priority. So through different platforms and continued engagement, it was possible to start a process that led, I would argue, to the fruitful collaboration that we have now with the continent. So it was, to some extent, I mean, that was my message to the House, that was an existential moment that we needed to revisit the areas that were being questioned, and put as our main priority to strengthen Africa's own agency. And then and that was particularly important because there were perceptions that we were competing for the same space, that we were in that process we were perhaps reducing the space for other important institutions on the continent to exercise the leadership. So we rebalanced that by first trying to strengthen our own value proposition, demonstrating exactly what is it that we contribute to the continent in terms not only of the think pieces, the knowledge that we generate, but also the process that we facilitate. Because, I mean, we have these three major functions: the think tank, the convening, and of course the operational side of it. And also, so that process was interesting. But it also happened in a moment where the United Nations were in the process of launching, or at least introducing, the so-called the new values and behaviors framework. So together with my colleague Karima, we were, the ECA champions for values and behaviors framework, and so combining the functions as acting executive secretary as well as, of course, the champion. I used that period in time to really underscoring that humility, was an attribute that could support our own effort to be better recognized in the on the continent and beyond. It was a difficult but interesting period, and I would argue that these experiences are there for a reason, and what is important is what we learn from it. And I would argue that we have learned that we are here just as many other institutions, and that we are not particularly better or more important than anyone else out there. And that what matters is creating those spaces where we can collaborate constructively together. So it was interesting period, and I enjoy it. I mean, being able to understand the entire organization, meaning the United Nations system and how it operates. In the process, also working together with the headquarters, trying to deepen the collaboration between the African Union and the United Nations. And it was during that period that the concept of one framework, which is the development framework, and two agendas, 2030 and 2063, was coined. Our job at ECA and working with the other agencies, funds, and programs under the leadership of the Deputy Secretary General, and of course the Secretary General as the overall head of the UN system, we worked into building the foundations from the development side of that framework, the one framework and two agendas. So it's been 24 years of extraordinary collaboration with very important milestones, as it were. One thing that I'm equally very proud of is the 2007 Big Table. Big Table was a meeting between selected African ministers of finance and their counterparts from the OECD. And the 2007 Big Table was on managing Africa's natural resources, again, for growth and poverty reduction. And that particular Big Table was consequential in the sense that what was discussed there influenced many other processes, not only at ECA, but across the globe. I mean, for example, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, EITI, we advocated that the EITI was predicated on this understanding that the governance problems were only existent in the developing South, and we argue that in the so-called home countries, so in the developed North, there were also serious governance problems that needed to be addressed, and then the EITI plus came out of there later. I mean, of course, it was translated into new instruments as part of the EITI. We also noted that the existing mining regimes in Africa, and with regimes, you are talking of policies, laws, regulations, processes, and so on, were really not contributing to address those structural problems that I started the discussion today with. And as a result, I established the International Study Group on the review of Africa mining regimes that produced a very important think piece, which is Minerals and Africa's Development, again, looking at all of those structural issues. So there are many different things that I was involved in that really am very happy for the opportunity. And now it's time to go back to Mozambique and eat a little bit of more seafood, because with the exception of Cameroon, in any other place where I worked for ECA, it was in a hinterland. It was a landlocked countries, and so eating seafood meant I having to bring seafood from Mozambique and other places and deep freezing it for months. Now is the time to eat them fresh out directly from the sea. So this is something that I really look forward to. Okay, so let me first start with that group of relatively young people that came together in 2001. This was part of the so-called ECA recruitment campaign. There was, I mean, at that time, the executive sector was KY Amwako, and he thought that, well, the institution needed a little bit of new blood. So we came as the new blood, full of energy and free birds, as it were. I mean, with age, you start constructing all sorts of rules of engagement. That group remained together for many years. I mean, in those days, I mean, we used to, or I used to eat in the canteen. These days, I eat in my office. It's very lonely up there on the ninth floor. So it was good. It was very good. And of course, I'd party like crazy. So it's interesting to see that many of us occupying different positions in the organization. But at the same time, it's important to understand that there's a need for a generation transition of some sort. Hence, I mean, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about these days is the so-called ECA School of Thought and Practice. Indeed, because of the recognition that, between now and in the next 5-6 years, 80 or 90 people will retire from the organization. And some of them indeed were or are involved in shaping many important processes on the continent and globally. So if we are not on purpose try to ensure that the newcomers, because we used to be called newcomers, the sons and daughters of Moako, that's what they used to call us. If we don't do that with the same cohort of new people that are coming here, then and we do this deliberately, then there could be, some losses there of some of the critical conceptual frameworks that how do you say, the DNA of ECA. Addis and Ethiopia provided the opportunity really to engage with our colleagues from Ethiopia, and was very friendly. It was an interesting period of time. Colleagues, as I leave ECA, I would like first and foremost to thank you very much for the opportunity that you gave me to be your colleague, to be part of what this institution does best, which is to offer our continent solutions to the challenges that it faces, an opportunity to find options to make the continent better, to rise to the level that it deserves to be. So I'm very thankful for all the friendships that I had during my stay here, for the good times and also for the bad times, because the bad times, like for example during COVID-19, taught us about the vulnerabilities that are present in our lives. We should not take anything for granted. And so I really don't take it for granted what I lived whilst working here. This is a privilege, and as such, I'm very thankful for this. I wish you all the best, and I trust that you will continue to make this organization as strong as it has always been. Thank you very much. Au revoir. Thank you. I spend a lot of time watching soccer, basketball, Formula One, tennis, almost every other sport through the television. So the plan is that now I will afford myself the opportunity to be there where these things are happening. I'll take more care of myself now in terms of my health. I mean, there's a teeth here and there that I have to take care of, which I never had time because, you know, with dental treatment, you have to go there every couple of weeks, and with this life here, it was impossible. So I have to take care of that, and I will not do the same things that I used to do here, which is to start work at around 7:30, 7:40, and then leave again at 7:30 at night. No, not at all. I will pace whatever I want to do next to ensure that I can combine all of those things together. I do this executive training for Columbia University on the fundamentals of extractives, and so I'll continue to do that. I mean, this is something I enjoy to do every June. I mean, that's the thing that really keeps my brain going to my roots, as it were. There is a book that I started to write. It's called My Trips. So and it documents all sorts of things that happen on my trips. Yeah, that's basically it. Enjoying life and being serious, perhaps 1/3 of the time. Otherwise, is doing the things that unfortunately was not possible for me to do the way I wanted to do, because work was my number one preoccupation. So now it's time to relax a little bit. But you never know. I mean, you say you are not going to do these things, and tomorrow you find yourself doing exactly what you said you were not going to do. But that's life, isn't it?